My dreams are nightmares. How can I sleep? You got the gun against me.
What's going on, everybody? King of Dragons 5000 here, coming at you with another figure review. Today we'll be having a look at the Wicked Cool Toys Halo, the Spartan Collection, Master Chief. And so here we have Master Chief posing out of the packaging. Before we take a look at the figure, let's actually run through his accessories really fast. Master Chief does come with several sets of hands. We do get a pair of fists. We get a pair of open hands. We get a pair of trigger finger hands. And we also do get a left hand where it looks like he's talking into a communicator. Master Chief also does come with his MA5 assault rifle, which does fit into either of his trigger finger hands, or you can store it onto his back, which is really nice. He also does come with a handgun, which again fits in either trigger finger hand, or you can store it on the side of his leg, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. Other than that, Master Chief really doesn't come with anything else, so let's actually have a closer look at his details. And so here we have a closer look at Master Chief, and I think Wicked Cool Toys has done an amazing job with this figure. They have knocked it out of the park with this Master Chief, although I think my one and only complaint is that he kind of needs a black wash. Other than that, this figure is really, really well done, and I am really glad I picked him up. I'm not the biggest Halo fan in the world. In fact, I haven't played most Halo games, but I do enjoy Master Chief's armor, and he does look really nice, especially in his Halo Infinite armor, which is based off of. It looks really, really good, especially his visor right here. Wicked Cool Toys actually went the extra mile and actually chromed out his visor, so you can get some reflection in that. That looks really, really good. I do like that. Something I feel is a little bit heavy-handed is all the wear and tear on his armor. It's not a bad look for Master Chief because you'd expect him to be all war-torn, but I do feel like Wicked Cool Toys was just a little heavy-handed with the dry brushing. As you can see right here, his pauldron's almost completely silver. There's some silver streaks in some spots that don't really make sense, but at the same time there's some spots that you would expect some silver streaks. So yeah, they got a little heavy-handed and a little, I don't want to say it's artificial, but they could have done more with the dry brushing in certain areas, especially right here on the edges where it would get worn out faster. But still, overall, they did a really good job with the paint. I think this is one area that I'm really not a fan of, is this blast mark right across his chest. The reason I'm not a fan of it is you don't see any other blast marks anywhere else on his armor, so that is a little bit bewildering on why is it only right here that he has a blast mark when you expect more markings all throughout his armor. I don't know, that's just me, but cannot get over how good this helmet looks. I think this is one of the best Master Chief looking figures we've had in a very long time, and they did a really, really exceptional job with it. Again, taking a look at his armor, I do feel like the black wash would have gone a long way, because his armor, despite having all these nice little distress markings, does feel a little bit clean. It's almost like he washed it right after a battle and the paint marks or the scrapes are still there. I would have liked to see some sort of black wash just to highlight some of the detailing on this figure, because he does have a lot of detail. You can see some panel lining right here. Just all this detail that could have been brought out. Again, I really wish that they had taken just a little more effort to add that dark wash throughout his costume, but overall, it still looks really impressive. Really do like how the distress marks look in some places. Other places, like I said, it's a little bit heavy-handed. You can see, like right here, it's a little bit much because you get on the inside of his armor. There's practically nothing. Like, I think this arm has an acceptable amount. You can see some right here on the outside. A little bit on the inside wouldn't have hurt this figure. But yeah, just look at all that really nice armor. I don't want to say it lacks detail because it really doesn't. I just wish it had some more paint wash to bring out this amazing detail. Now, something you'll notice is he kind of suffers from Hasbro syndrome, where parts of him are painted and other parts are not. Like, especially here on his right leg, this leg doesn't have any distress marks. This side does. If this was Hasbro, none of the back would have distress marks. So I do appreciate the fact that they did go in and attempt to make it look worn and torn, but just a little more uniformity, like back here, would have been nice. Now you might be noticing this piece right here. This is actually how you store his handgun on his side. You can see it does peg off. It pegs in like that. You can flip it around and have the peg on the outside, and that stays in there really nicely. So you can peg in his handgun right there. So his sidearm is always at his side, so I really do like that. If I had one problem, it's the way they did his knees. This does look really nice, and I do like the way the armor folds in on itself. But when we get into articulation, you'll understand why I don't like the knees. Aesthetically, he looks nice in a neutral pose, but it does kind of get weird when you start bending his knees. But overall, I know I've said overall really nice figure, but you know what? He is a really nice figure, and again, those distress marks right here on the edges do look really nice. Kind of wish they did more on the edges, but it's still a really great job, and I think Wicked Cool Toys deserves all the praise for how nice this figure came out. Just an overall great looking Master Chief, and that's something we really haven't gotten in a long time. We haven't got a Master Chief that looks this impressive, and really good job by Wicked Cool Toys. So with that out of the way, guys, let's actually compare Master Chief to other figures you may have in your collection. So here we have Master Chief posed next to a Marvel Legends Cyclops and a DC Multiverse Superman. Here we have Master Chief posed next to a WWE Elite Scale figure and a Mezco 1/12 Collective Popeye the Sailor Man. And finally, here we have Master Chief posed next to a Lightning Collection White Ranger and a Star Wars Black Series Mandalorian. And for one final comparison, here we have the Wicked Cool Toys Master Chief posed next to the Mattel Master Chief. So with the comparisons out of the way, let's actually have a closer look at his articulation. So Master Chief does have an impressive amount of articulation. There are some spots that could be better, but overall he does have pretty good points of articulation. For starters, he does have a double ball joint in the head, so he can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. He can tilt his head side to side, although it does butt up against his armor, so the helmet does hinder his head tilt left and right. Goes only to about there, unfortunately, because his armor does again get in the way, so you mainly get up and down movement. He does have a slight butterfly joint, which does pivot the arms forward. They pivot the arms backwards a little bit, but they mainly go forwards and to neutral. We do have a ball joint in the shoulder, which does go all the way around. Goes out to about that far before his armor starts hitting itself. He does have a bicep swivel, which works fine, no problem. We have a double hinge at the elbow, giving him much better than 90 degrees, so I really do like that. He does have a swivel and hinge at the wrist, no issues there, so good range in his wrist. I kind of wish that his trigger finger hands had up and down movement, but it's okay. So this is where I think he could use better articulation. That's as far back as his torso goes. That's as far forward as his torso goes. We don't get too much range in his torso. He can tilt side to side very little, and we get very little swivel at both the torso and the waist here. You can try to force it, but it's not the softest plastic, so I do worry about breaking it if I try going further than that. So yeah, we don't get too much range going to the side, which is a little bit unfortunate. So his legs do kick forward about there, which that's really good articulation right there. They don't go back at all because of the way his armor is sculpted on the back. Out to the side, they go out. That's respectable, honestly. We do have a thigh swivel, which works fine. If you have him standing straight up, the armor does get in the way of itself, but once you start moving his leg, you can move this joint a little bit. So let's actually have a look at his knees, which I think is the weakest part of the aesthetics when it comes to articulation. He has double bend in the knee, but you can see how far apart those hinges are. That does cause a problem because when you bend his knee, you can start to see what I mean. Look at that knee. That is terrible. I mean, there's really not much you can do, but they could have sculpted that a little bit better because that looks terrible in all honesty. But he does have double bend in the knee. He does have a hinge in the ankle, which does move forward and back. We have forward-facing pin for rocker, although it's really loose on mine for some reason, which that is a little bit annoying, but it's nothing I can't fix. then we have a respectable toe hinge. So overall, Master Chief here has some impressive articulation, and Wicked Cool Toys has done a really good job with him. So what we're going to do now is get him posed for my final thoughts, and then we'll wrap up this review. And so here we have the Halo Spartan Collection Master Chief pose for my final thoughts, and overall, Wicked Cool Toys has done a fantastic job with this figure. Now, like I did state earlier in the video, I'm not the biggest Halo fan. I haven't really played Halo in my lifetime. I was more of a PlayStation and Nintendo guy, but I really do like the way Master Chief looks, and being a gaming icon, he needs to be in every gamer's collection. Even if you don't play Halo, you're going to want to have Master Chief in your collection just because he is very important to the video game or video gaming in general. As far as the figure goes, I absolutely love this figure. This is actually one of my favorite figures right now just because of the amount of detail that Wicked Cool Toys put into him. There's a lot of corners that they could have cut with this figure, but they decided to go all out with this figure in terms of sculpt and detail. When it comes to paint, I do feel like the scratches and all the distress marks are a little bit heavy-handed in some areas and lacking in crucial areas, such as all the corners should have some distress marks and all the recessed parts shouldn't. But that's not enough to say that this is a bad figure. A little bit of paint would go a long way with this figure. If they had included a black wash throughout his entire costume, along with all those silver distress marks, this would be one really amazing figure. The fact that he doesn't have that does knock him down a few points, but I think the accessories he comes with are more than enough to display him with your personal preference, and there's a lot of things to love about this figure. If you're a fan of Halo and want a Master Chief in your collection, this is probably the best one we've gotten in recent memory. I know we have gotten some good ones in the past, but I think this is the very best that we've seen from any Halo collection so far. With that being said, guys, I'm KingofDragons 5000. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. Go check out all my other action figure reviews as well as all my other action figure videos. Hopefully you find them informative. As always, if there's a figure you'd like to see me review, let me know down in the comments, and if it's in my collection, I'll definitely have a look at it. While you're at it, check out my Instagram account for new and exciting action figure photos. And as always, ring that bell to be notified every time I upload a video. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Take care, everyone.